I'm just going to introduce and Carol Green from Utah Schools for the Deaf and Blind, and they'll be presenting on eye gaze. So welcome.
Hi, so my name's Carol Green, and I'm visually impaired, so I'll be using Braille with a screen reader. So the presentation we have today is how to use forced choice to teach eye gaze of students with visual impairments since 2010. And I've worked with the multiply impaired students for most of my career as a TBI. I originally worked in Farmington, New Mexico for 10 years, and I've been with the Utah School for the Blind since 2021. I'm currently the assistive technology instructor for USDB.
Seven years in Davis School District and also Ogden. So, and spent some time being a school counselor in Ignacio, Colorado, of all places. So,
We're both from the Four Corners.
yes, you're Four Corner girls. We're happy to be here.
So, this presentation that I'm sharing with you today is actually the second session of a course that we are teaching through Canvas to TBIs across the state. So the first session of this course focused on kind of like building a background knowledge of your student. And that would include the communication matrix. You know, having a really good idea of whether your student is a pre-symbolic communicator or a symbolic communicator, and then whether they're pre-intentional or intentional. So hopefully you're familiar with the communication matrix. So you really need to look at all the fine details of that matrix to get a good picture of where your student is at with their communication. So you need to work together as a team. So the team needs to be the TBI, the speech therapist, the occupational therapist, and the physical therapist, and anyone else that might be. But those are the essential people that need to be working together. And then alongside of that, we need to have information from the CVI range, the cortical visual impairment. So if the student has a neurological deficit of some kind and they've been diagnosed with either cerebral visual impairment or cortical visual impairment, then the TBI needs to conduct a CVI range. So what the CVI range will provide the team is a very clear idea of like where they're looking, like what their visual fields are. If they have a preference for their visual field, if they have a color preference, sometimes they prefer red or yellow. Most of the time it's red and yellow, but they could be attracted to other colors. Whether you require like a reflective aspect to what they're looking at, like maybe foil, something that attracts their vision. That's the only time they look at things. Whether they have issues with depth perception. So the child may not have a physical impairment with their vision that impacts depth perception, but their cortical or cerebral visual impairment might impact depth perception. So you need to have a clear picture of how they're using their vision and why as a team, are you deciding that you want to use eye gaze to help the student make choices? So that's kind of the background. That would have been the review of like the first session. So going into the next part, so you kind of want to be able to have that background. So you want to be able to go from objects to pictures. So that's where you really need to look at that, the communication matrix to determine where is my student at. They're probably most likely still in a symbolic stage. And they might remain in the symbolic stage for most of their school career, depending on their physical disabilities, their diagnosis. So with that in mind, you want to collect and as a team identify, the classroom teacher is going to be the driver. So you want to be able to identify like what objects are going to be meaningful to this child to like develop a routine. So with that, I do have like a basket here. It's kind of like one of those baskets you get from the dollar store. Can you hand me that one, Keri?
She walked away from.
So what I did with this is I just put like a cloth over it. So the idea I had with this is when you're working with students who have a severe cognitive and language impairment, they can't speak, okay? You wanted to have objects. So the American Printing House for the Blind has a lot of materials, but like they have the symbols and meaning kit, which have lots of different like containers that you can use. And the idea is that you want the starting container and the ending container to be different. But in the classroom environment, I found those types of systems to be very cumbersome. The classroom teacher wants something streamlined and user-friendly. And I found that they used this. So what we would do with this is we would put the objects in here. So like one teacher decided to use like a jar of baby food. She emptied, it was an empty jar of baby food back when they used to be jars. And she put like sand or some pebbles from the playground into that jar, so that when the student was going to go out, they'd feel that and they'd say, okay, we're going to the playground. I would get like a preemie size diaper and I'd have it in here. So that way the educational assistant or the teacher could show the child and have them touch and say, we're going to change your diaper now. So you're giving this child cues to their day or to something that becomes meaningful to them.
So Carol, really quick. So just to clarify, what we're talking about here is that it's sometimes a leap for people to say, oh, they're an eye gaze kid. So there are steps to having that experience be successful. And this is what she's modeling for you, is that before you put up a Toby eye gaze bar with a student, you're going to want to do fundamental conceptual training that would basically scaffold the kid into being able to understand what's on the screen. So this little basket is the beginning. It's an example of those beginning steps. You're not going to put a screen in front first. You're going to work on those fundamentals first. So that's what I just wanted to add.
Thank you. So on this side of the basket, you have, the objects that you're going to use. And then on this side, let's say you change their diaper. Then you would say, okay, we're done changing the diaper. We're going to put it away. We're finished, So it's important that as a team, that we all have common language. So you need to find out from the classroom teacher, are we a finished classroom or are we a done classroom? What are we saying for when we're done with an activity? And everybody needs to say the same thing, you know, so that the child has that common language, starts to developing some common language. So, you want to set the stage for that common language and for them to be able to be together and doing those things. So, but I just wanted to share that with you so that you could see, kind of conceptualize something that you can use. APH, the American Printing House for the Blind, has a lot of different materials that you can use to help your student. Keri brought some materials from the ALMC. So some of the things we have here are like the all-in-one board, the Invisiboard.
The all-in-one board comes in 2 sizes. You can buy them just from the American Printing House. You don't have to have TBI money to do that. If you do have access to a TBI in your districts, they would probably get some money at the very beginning of the year. They usually do. That's called quota money, and it's for the APH product line. And they nail their presentation materials. So these all-in-one boards are so helpful because of the fact that there's a way to prop them up. And there's also magnetic. A magnetic board on the underside of these, and you could put vinyl, you know, like from a Cricut. So if you need to black it out, CBI kids almost across the board benefit from a reduction in visual clutter. So, you know, black background is best for them. And then there's also the Invisiboard, which is really kind of like, I'm a child of the late 70s, early 80s. We did a lot of science projects with you know, like poster boards, but you can put this behind them to mask out any sort of distraction. You can do this also with fabric from the fabric store and or go to Walmart and get a black bed sheet. But these are nice because they're full, they fold, and there's also like a Velcro support, and I'm bouncing all over the floor. But these are just more formalized products that would help with reduction of visual clutter.
Thank you. So I have here the SAMS kit. I was just referring to the symbols as a meaning kit from the American Printing House for the Blind. This kit relies heavily on like different containers and different boxes. It kind of lends itself more towards the deafblind, but it's just another resource that you can turn to towards looking for how do I get meaning out of these objects that I'm using to communicate with the child. So we want to be able to have, you know, the common language, make sure that we're using the same kind of terms for everything. So for forced choice, okay. So what does it mean, forced choice? So, over here on the table, we have Minnie Mouse, and we've got a blank piece of paper, okay? So, forced choice is basically you've got an object or something, an activity, or that represents, you know, an object that maybe that represents an activity that the child likes, or the actual object. In this case, it's Minnie Mouse because she sings a little song and her wand lights up. So what you're doing is you are presenting them with a choice. You have Minnie Mouse and then a piece of paper. So you basically have something that is more meaningful and something that doesn't really mean anything. So you need to, going back to getting information about your student, after you've gone through, like, I guess the clinical type of assessments and, you know, gathering all that data, in addition to that, you need to have, you have to have an inventory of what they like and what they don't like. How do you figure out what they like or don't like if they don't talk? So you're like, that's a challenge, right? But you want to pay attention to things like their breathing. If you can kind of get a sense of what their heart rate might be, how long they're looking at something, whether they look away right away. So you're looking for little small communications like those to give you an indicator of, does this child like this thing or doesn't like this thing? You want to present them with things you know they like. You need to have an idea of how does this child learn? If the child is using their vision, then you know that that's an avenue because that's what we're talking about, right? But they might also like some vestibular kind of things, like something that vibrates. And like I said earlier, they might have a preferred color. You want to know those things and then be able to present the objects in the right field of vision. So, and then before you start the choice making, you want to let them experience or play with the object. So before I might present Minnie Mouse as a choice, I might just have one session where we're just playing with Minnie Mouse and finding out all the things that Minnie Mouse does. So they can experience everything about Minnie Mouse so that they're making an informed choice later. So,
And Carol's Minnie Mouse has a little. Because for Carol, just being Carol's friend, Carol loves Minnie Mouse. This would be Carol's choice all day long. So she's a Disney lady.
so you can also, one thing I used to live in New Mexico as a TBI, and we'd come up to Utah to visit my son who was in college. And I would always hit the DI.
Oh.
And
He's going.
I would always go to DI because they got a lot of great toys that you can adapt. So my husband is my right-hand man. He's very supportive of me. And Minnie Mouse was a Valentine's Day gift, so I never adapted her, but there's tons of other toys that we would buy, and he would adapt them for me to make them into a Switch toy. So then all we would have to do is plug a switch into Minnie Mouse. If the child isn't able to squeeze her hand, they could be hitting a switch. So DI is a really great place to go to find something like Minnie. You want it to be something simple, like a cause and effect type of toy to be able to adapt. So, so when I'm talking about forced choice, it's what it is you're giving the child something they like and just nothing. Now, I used to try to give them something maybe they didn't like, but that actually was too negative. You don't want this to be a negative experience. So avoid making one of the choices something they don't like. It just needs to be a non-choice, like basically nothing, I tried a pillow. I was like, oh, well, I'll have them choose between this toy and a pillow. And that you think the more you interact with these kids, the more you realize they know exactly what's going on. They're like any other kid that's trying to avoid doing work.
Yeah.
And that kid would, look at the pillow. And I'd be like, I can't believe you're looking at the pillow every time. So what is a preferred object? Kind of like what I just talked about, look at the child, look at how their body language really, and how they respond to an object to get an idea, is this a preferred object or not? So, and then a non-preferred object, okay, they definitely don't like it. You know, they cry or they close their eyes, you know, they're turning away. That gives you a really good indication that, okay, this is not a preferred object. So that's kind of just to go over some definitions. So like with the non-preferred object, she's got a picture here. So you just want to collect the data, like, you know, everything should be, you should have data. So, I mean, you don't need to get hung up on, you know, data is just you writing something down. You know, you don't really need to get too hung up on, you know, like charts and graphs. It's just you making a note on a piece of paper or on your computer. You know, this is what I saw this kid do today. You know, kind of like your session notes. Your session notes can just be your data. And that gives you an idea of where you're going with the kid, you know, what they like and what they don't like. So when you're going to do the forced choice, you want to be able to follow through. So first you want to have them experience the object. You know, they're having fun with it. You know, you've established that they've learned, okay, this is something this thing does. You want to be able to model with them how to play with an object alongside of them, kind of like the Van Dyke stuff, Lily Nielsen stuff. You want to be able to maybe do your turn, my turn kind of stuff. So that way they've experienced it before you start getting into the choice making. When you do the choice making, you've got the two objects, you're holding them, you're presenting them. And as soon as if they look at that piece of paper, then you just put the Minnie Mouse down and you're like, it's just a piece of paper, you know. This is all it is, you know. That's what you chose. You looked at that, so that's what you're looking at. This is all it's not a real choice, right? Or the pillow, which I thought was a non-choice, but you know, some of these kids, like I said, they're really smart. So, but basically just pick something that is not highly experienced. Maybe it's not in their preferred color, but don't choose things that put them into like STEM, you know, brain STEM, you know. You don't want them crying or closing their eyes, you know. But you want to follow through. So don't feel like you know, they keep just looking at the paper. They never look at the doll. But you want to follow through and be consistent and help them understand that this is what you looked at. This was your choice. Also keep in mind that less is more. So sometimes when they have a visual impairment, people kind of get hung up on the fact that they think they need to describe everything. Well, but these children, their language is still developing, or their language may continue to be limited. And the more you bombard them with lots of description and language, you're cluttering up their auditory space. So try to just use, you know, you looked at it. You looked at it, you know, help them understand that they looked at it. So then that's what we're doing. And I'd probably do like a minute or 30 seconds and then try again, you know, to show the doll and the non-choice paper or whatever it is again. And then as soon as they look at that doll, okay, you know, they get to experience the doll or that activity. Let's see. So you'll want to reward them with that preferred object, you know, and use really exciting language. You did it, you chose, you know, oh, you're gonna get to be with Minnie. Oh, it's so fun, you know. try to be upbeat and positive. I worked for a long time. I'm half Navajo, so I worked for a long time on the Navajo Nation, and I kind of got away from that, kind of being like that. But I encourage you to just be that positive, cheery person. Help the student feel that reward, feel positive about this experience. And that feeling will also, transfer to them to help them understand that they're making this choice with their eyes. So you want to be able to teach your student that they're making a choice, kind of like what I just said. So sometimes why am I doing this presentation? Why am I doing this? So like I said, I've been at TVI since 2010, and I've worked with a lot of students with multiple disabilities. And a lot of times we put the cart before the horse. Unfortunately, though, sometimes because of Medicaid, we've got outside influences that help parents put the cart before the horse without our input. And a child has a device, has an eye gaze device, and you're trying to work through why it's not working, why this experience isn't working. And that's when we kind of need to go back and have, like, everything here, none of this is a high-tech device. We've got the boards, we've got objects. We sometimes everybody wants to see like a result. They want to be able to see that my child's doing something. They want to have an instant result. And but then it doesn't become successful, because we never went back to a low-tech, simplified opportunity to help the child understand that when they're using their vision, when we're presenting a choice and they're looking at something, you've made that choice. This is what's going to, now this is going to be what you're interacting with. This is what you're going to do. And this is all concrete, real objects, okay? So you want to move from the real objects to pictures before you introduce any type of screen or device.
Carol, can I jump in right here? So just, if you guys ever review the AT Act, it goes from low tech to high tech for a reason. So low tech is in the law. And it goes, there's a continuum. So simple tech, no tech, meaning no electronics, all the way up to the highest of high tech, like Carol's screen reader. So the Braille device. So these are examples of things that have been thought through. And so real objects that aren't plugged in, that don't require electricity, that's our starting point always with AT. They're usually the most affordable, they're replicable. Of course, I already said low cost. Let me say it again, low cost. Oh yeah, and they're cheap. So that's where we start. And the set framework, we're always looking at the most, the item of ease, the solution. What solution would work for the most people, universal design, but also for the least amount of money, because of the fact that funding is difficult to get. So what we're talking about here is where we start with eye gaze. And it's always going to be with real objects. Thanks.
All right, so how do you get from the object to the picture? Okay, so what you do is, like, let's say it's Minnie Mouse. All right, so you've established that Minnie Mouse is a preferred object. So you take a picture, a colored picture of Minnie Mouse. Try to maybe put it in a black background because she's got a pink dress, If she had a black dress, then I'd put her against a white background. Take a picture, make sure it's color. Go from bigger to small, make it like maybe a 3x4, something a little bigger, and pair it with the object. So now when I present the choice to the student, I have Minnie, I'm holding Minnie, but I also have the picture. And you might do that for a long time, like 3 months, maybe half a school year. It depends on the student. Before you start just showing the student the picture. So you're giving that student a lot of time to process and understand that that other thing you're showing me, that picture, represents that doll or that object that I like. And then this next part, adapting your objects. So I did my national board certification. And for that, I had to do some video of my instruction. So one of the instructional videos I did was a functional routine with a student who can see, but is has cortical visual impairment, doesn't speak. She could use her hands, but kind of limited. And what we did is we adapted part of that process in doing the writing and the videotaping is I realized that I want her to be able to initiate. How can I get her to have the opportunity to initiate with this activity instead of that I'm doing this to her? Instead, I want to be her to have an opportunity to initiate something. So what I did is I put zip ties on the lid, like the lid to the juicer. We put a zip tie on it so she could like hook her finger through and pull the lid on. Or we put a zip tie on the juicer spout so that she could pull to, when we were done making it. She used a switch to activate the blender, but I wanted to find other ways that she could initiate or be part of the routine. The same thing for the Joy player. So APH has an audio player that's really nice that has switch access. It has like a cartridge that you can slide into it. But if they can hook like this, they might be able to pull it out. But if you adapt it with a zip tie again, they can hook their finger through it, and it also gives them a little more leverage to pull it out. So, looking at your devices and the things that you're using and thinking about their fine motor skills, you want to be able to have them initiate, or at least try to initiate parts of a routine, parts of a functional routine. So, like I said, you want to be able to have the picture paired with the object, before you jump into just using pictures. Because pictures by themselves, you're moving more towards symbolic communication. And you want to be able to, look at that communication matrix at least, if not twice a year, at least once a year as a team, and get a sense of where is the student at? Is the student requesting to do more of things in a clear way? Does the student refuse things in a clear way? Are we moving forward in our communication? Are they being intentional in their way they communicate? Are they directing their communication clearly to an audience, or do they just communicate to whoever will respond? So trying to move along in that communication matrix. So like I was saying earlier, we want to have clear, defined norms with, as a team. Like I was saying about, are we a finished class or are we a done class? Are we saying, do you want to do more? Or are we saying again? What kind of language are we using with the students to help the team to continue to move forward? So, the American Printing House for the Blind has another kit. It's called the Stats Kit. So it's like a communication kit that has real objects kind of glued onto a board. And it's nice. I like it, but some of it, there are some symbols in there that I don't like. I don't know what it means, So you wanna, if you're gonna use a tangible object other than the real object, let's say like going to the playground, okay? The teacher chose a baby food jar with sand or rocks in it, right? How do you transfer that onto like a card so that it's something small that you would put in that basket or put on a board to help them understand their routine? Maybe you would take one of those cards and actually hot glue some rocks to it. This kit has a tire for the bus. Well, I mean, the only way that's meaningful is, especially if they have a visual impairment, is for them to touch the tire of the bus, before they get on the bus. It's so dirty, right? What do they think about when they get on the bus? What do they feel around them? Well, most of them, especially if they have multiple disabilities, they're getting probably snapped in. There's a seat belt in there. So one of my old driver back in New Mexico, she always had really good connections. She was able to get a seat belt from a bus that they were retiring that bus. And she got like the seat belt, like a piece of the seat belt for me. So, and we used it in a language experience book. But, you could do stuff like that. Like, what are they touching? What are they experiencing when they get in the bus? Something that's meaningful to them. But this is a good kit to start with. But, I wouldn't totally just use that kit. I'd expand it to other things.
Carol, this is where I'll jump into. And there's a chair.
Oh, thank you. Oh,
There you go.
Okay.
Some handles.
So a quick aside, you have students that have visual impairments on your caseload.
I'm playing.
They have access to the coolest thing ever. And it is the coolest thing because the ALMC is my little workshop. So it's a makerspace that's dedicated to make materials for students with visual impairments and deafblindness. It's at the Utah School for the Blind. I'm the project manager. It's called the ALMC, just like YMCA, but not with the dance. So if you're interested in accessing things for your students, again, this is only because part of our project is foundation funded. So this is right now only for visually impaired students or deafblind students that receive services from a vision specialist, a TVI, or early intervention specialist through PIP, the Parent and Infant Program, or deafblind teacher specialist. We can make you specialized 3D printed tactile communication cards. So this supports the idea of stats, but we can do it for like 25 cents rather than $400. Sorry, APH, I had to say it's a really expensive kit. But and I know that I'm like I'm the little scrappy. I'm a little scrappy. But that's okay, because I was a teacher, I was a resource teacher. I get it. It's so much money that you spend in your own pocketbook. We can make you 3D printed, color preference, whatever. Just make sure that you it is a must that you talk to your speech therapist though, okay? For your students, because I will ask you, did you talk to your speech therapist? Also your OT, to make sure that these are what the team wants to use, but we have a whole catalog of things. We can make you letters, we can make you a ton of stuff. So the ALMC at USDB, all right, kind of rhymes, ALMC at USDB. So, Stacks is a great place to start, but that is an expensive kit. And these don't cost you anything. Cool, huh? Okay. Carol, you're up.
Okay, so, so I'm pretty much, I got here that I'm at the summary slide here. So, just to summarize, we want to be able to, collect data, use that data to make decisions for the student as a team. We want to be consistent in our language and be, collaborate on the objects that we're using. You want to pair the object with the picture, because we want to move towards pictures. So we want to be able to give that child an opportunity to understand that this picture is replacing the object. And then we need to be patient, with our student. We need to, pace the way we're instructing with the student. And be realistic. I've worked with students who, I had a student who was on a respirator, who stayed at home. And I've had some students pass away in my career. And ultimately, I guess for me, I felt like my goal at the end of the day was, did I do something that enriched their life? Did I give them an opportunity to initiate or to experience something rather than doing something to them? But was it something that enriched their life? Because for some of them, their lives might not be that long. And we want them to be able to have meaningful experiences and moving towards hopefully some type of meaningful communication in a way that they can express themselves. Because so much of their lives is people, moving them, kind of doing things to them rather than them being able to connect with you. So, I mean, if at the end of the day, if you feel like you've moved your student in a direction where you've enriched their lives and you've helped them move towards connecting with you or anyone else, then I think you've really done them a great service. So, do we have any questions?
Not all at once. Seriously, come on. Not one?
I really liked this. It's not a question, just a comment. So thank you.
Yeah, that's great.
One question.
Yay, question.
I appreciate your insights. I remember like 15 years ago, we went through, UAT offered a training with USDB as well on the Every Move Counts, clicks and chats. And I think what I'm hearing from Keri is that some of these principles are the first part of the Every Move Counts curriculum. Not if anybody else feels the same way, whatnot, just as you're trying to get individuals to make choices and see what their preferences are, to realize that they have the ability to volitionally make choices.
And I think, I'll jump in and then Carol, I'm gonna give you a second. Anybody who's spent any time with any kid, any student, the more time you spend with them, the more you get to know them. Everybody on the planet has preferences and everybody has their own personality, which is a beautiful fact. So the more that you get to know a student, especially just, like, they might be dressed in a certain way, and maybe it's because their parents know they love purple. And you see them every week in purple. Oh, there's my purple girl. Just, like, I think it's a beautiful opportunity for you as an individual to connect with them as an individual. Because everybody's going to connect with each other in different ways, and that's true for us as adults. But I mean, following curriculum often can feel a little suffocating and maybe a little like scary, like, am I following it right? And I think the message here is that there's ways to help students or assist students in the outcome ultimately of using eye gaze. But it begins with that relationship, that connection, because you can't facilitate that skill without knowing them, which is actually the beginning of the SET framework. Right? Student environment technology. Wait, what is it? Student environment task technology? Technology tools. Thank you, Jen.
Yeah.
So
Like,
task.
we know what
you mean.
So it just, I mean, to just, strip it all back down, yeah. But I mean, we don't need a curriculum to tell us that.
I'm trying to think of, when do you jump in and put the camera and the computer in front of the kid? Are we going through saying that we've got to have them make some choices to see if they can make those choices first before are we throwing the camera out in front of them saying, we're going to teach you how to do the process?
Well, a symbolic, like a screen in front of a student with like, we've all made, not everyone, I don't know if everyone's seen it, but the Prolo Quo or the cough drop, you'll see that even a 2-panel AAC screen device, I mean, that's kind of abstract because, I mean, when you take a step back, it's a screen with like 2 symbols. What does that even mean? So, I mean, I don't know if there's one right rule to say it's now. As a team, the more you guys collaborate I'm nervous, can you tell all that? The more collaboration, I mean, the longer I've worked at the Utah School for the Blind, the more refined I've become in my understanding. Because as an early resource teacher, I can tell you that I was very, very like flustered by all the related services. And now that I've been in an IEP team long enough, especially with specialized learners, I really have become very, very cognizant of the fact that it's very important as a team to work on this because it's every child's journey. And so there isn't always a right answer. There's lots of right answers. And there's also answers that may be less functional, like, okay, well, maybe we did that a little too soon. But I mean, you're never going to find a more forgiving, resilient group than kids. They're the best we get. Kids can bounce. Oh, okay, we're not going to do that now. I mean, I really believe that, like, kids allow us chances to redirect courses because there are times that we've tried something and that didn't work. Oh, and that's always disappointing to us adult, we as an adult, oh man, they don't work. Or they lose funding and they don't get their fancy dancy thing. So doing forced choice in a very gentle, fun way will facilitate progress on the outset whenever the actual screen becomes implemented. And as we know from COVID, sometimes those screens aren't going to work because the software might need to be updated, whatever, blah, blah, blah. These are activities that you can do with a student, just, you don't need it to be plugged in. So, Carol, do you have anything to add about that? I hope.
I guess, so I'm thinking of Minnie Mouse, right? So, there's that object that you went from concrete to a picture, when you're going to move to the screen, keep those pictures and you can upload it into the screen. So now Minnie Mouse is on the screen they have to look at. So, carrying it all the way through. So you started with the real object, you went to the object with a picture, a handheld picture, and then that same picture went on to the screen. And it's gone all the way through to that process. So that way, it's your continuity, having that continuity for the student. Some resources I have here, active learning space with the Texas School for the Blind is a really great place. they have patterns for like making a bib, out of, fleece, so that you can put Velcro. So if you have a student who, like a lot of my students, they're doing this, I would always keep asking, can we put the tray, on their wheelchair? And, I would always, the stories I would always get is that, well, they're going to be getting a new wheelchair, or they're in the process of getting a new wheelchair, or that wheelchair that they had, that tray doesn't fit on, I mean, it was so hard. Just all I wanted them is to have a tray, because they do this and there's no expectation for them to do this, to have their hands out. So sometimes they're just always, their hands are on their chest, so, they have patterns, you can make a bib for them to put scratch boards and things on their chest so they can use their fingers to feel. They have a really nice, really simple thing called a buncher, which is all it is a strap of elastic, and you just put some buttons on it with some buttonholes, and it you can wrap it around their hand, and it just helps them kind of keep their hand together like that. Then you can like put something so that they're it helps them hold something. It's really nice, something simple, but it's nice to have this website to go to kind of get ideas for things like that. So, I don't really have anything else to add. So I appreciate everybody's time today. And I hope that you got something useful out of this, this presentation. Thank you.
I just want to remind everybody to find the QR code to scan that too.